Dr. Yun Tae-ho stared at the data on his screen for the 10th time that morning. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. Yet there they were, glowing softly in the dim light of the Seoul Institute laboratory. "Sujin, come look." At this, he called to his colleague who was working at the next station. Park Sujin rolled her chair over, her coffee mug in hand. She was the best engineer Tae-ho had ever worked with, and if anyone could spot an error in his calculations, it would be her. "What's got you so excited?" she asked, peering at the screen. "These readings from the Jupiter probe. Look at the temporal measurements near Europa." Sujin frowned as she studied the data. The probe had been collecting information about space-time distortions for 3 months now. Most of the readings were normal, exactly what they expected to find near a large planet, like Jupiter. But this was different. "The numbers are jumping," she said slowly, "like time itself is wobbling." "That's exactly what I thought," Tae-ho said, his voice filled with excitement. "But it's not random. There's a pattern." He pulled up another screen showing wave formations. The lines moved up and down in a rhythm that looked almost like a heartbeat. "Wu needs to see this," Sujin said, referring to their mathematician friend Kim Wu, who worked in the building next door. 20 minutes later, the three of them crowded around Tae-ho's desk. Wu had brought his own laptop and was running calculations faster than either of them could follow. "This is impossible," Wu muttered, typing furiously. "But the math works out. These readings show genuine temporal fluctuations." "Meaning what exactly?" Sujin asked. "Meaning," Tae-ho said, his heart racing, "that we might be looking at natural time rifts. Tears in the fabric of space-time itself." The room fell silent. All three of them understood what this could mean. For decades, scientists had theorized about time travel, but it remained firmly in the realm of science fiction. The energy requirements alone made it seem impossible. But if nature itself was creating these rifts, "We need more data," Wu said finally, "a lot more data." Over the next 2 weeks, the team worked around the clock. They redirected 3 more probes toward the Jupiter system and set up a monitoring station on the Moon to get clearer readings. The results were even more astounding than their initial discovery. The temporal rifts weren't just random tears. They followed specific patterns, opening and closing like doors in space-time. Some lasted for hours, others for just minutes. And most incredible of all, they seemed to lead to different time periods. "Look at this," Tae-ho said during one of their late-night sessions. "Probe 7 passed through a rift yesterday and detected technology signatures that don't match anything we know." "Future technology?" Sujin asked. "Or past technology from a civilization we haven't discovered yet," Wu added. "The readings suggest materials that shouldn't exist in our current time." Period. Sujin leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the implications. "So we're saying that these rifts are actual doorways through time?" "That's exactly what we're saying," Tae-ho confirmed. "And they're stable enough that something could theoretically pass through them." The discovery was too big to keep to themselves. After much debate, they decided to present their findings to the Global Science Council. The council would then determine how to share the information with the rest of humanity and, eventually, with the other species in the galaxy. The presentation took place in Geneva 3 days later. Scientists from around the world gathered to hear what the Korean team had discovered. Tae-ho stood at the podium, his hands shaking slightly as he explained their findings. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we have discovered that time travel is not only possible, it's happening naturally." "In our solar system right now?" The room erupted in excited chatter. Questions flew from every direction. How stable were these rifts? Could humans safely pass through them? What were the potential dangers? "We believe," Sujin explained when the room quieted down, "that with proper preparation and safety measures, we could send a probe through one of these rifts and retrieve it safely." "The applications are endless," Wu added. "We could study historical events firsthand, or gather information about potential futures to help guide humanity's development." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the head of the Global Science Council, stood Up. This discovery could change everything we know about the universe. But we must proceed carefully. Something this significant needs to be shared with our galactic neighbors. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Lehigh-1 carried the complete research data to the Galactic Council Station orbiting Alpha Centauri. The station was home to representatives from 47 different alien species, all working together to maintain peace and share knowledge across the galaxy. Lee had been humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 5 years. She had seen how the other species reacted to human discoveries before. Usually they were impressed by human creativity and determination. Sometimes they were concerned about human recklessness. But she had never seen them react with fear. The moment she mentioned temporal rifts and time travel, the entire council chamber fell silent. The Kethmori representative, an ancient being called Elder Voxstar, stood up slowly. His 6 arms trembled as he spoke. Ambassador Lee, you must understand the gravity of what you have told us. Time manipulation is forbidden. It has been forbidden for 1,000,000 years. But we're not talking about manipulation, Lee protested. These are natural phenomena. We're simply studying them. The result is the same, said Morthuk, the Vextari representative. Your species must cease all temporal research immediately. Lee felt a chill run down her spine. I don't understand. Why would studying natural time rifts be dangerous? Elder. Voxstar's ancient eyes seemed to look right through her. Because young human civilizations that study time always begin to manipulate time, and civilizations that manipulate time ... disappear. The chamber remained silent as the weight of those words settled over everyone present. Lee had heard stories of the Great Silence, mysterious disappearances of entire alien civilizations throughout galactic history, but she had never connected them to temporal research. What do you mean, disappear? She asked quietly. Gone, Morthuk said simply. No trace, no ruins. No history, as if they never existed at all. Elder Voxstar stepped closer to Lee's platform. Your species will abandon all temporal research, Ambassador. You will destroy all data related to these rifts. You will submit to galactic oversight to ensure compliance. And if we refuse? Lee asked, though she already suspected the answer. Then humanity will be quarantined to your home system permanently. And if you continue to pursue temporal research after that ... The elder's voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. Lee straightened her shoulders. I will deliver your message to my government, but I cannot guarantee they will accept these terms. They must, Elder Voxstar said firmly. You have 30 standard days to comply. The safety of the entire galaxy depends on it. As Lee's ship departed the station and began its journey back to Earth, she stared out at the stars and wondered what humanity would choose. Would they bow to the demands of species they barely understood? Or would they choose the path that had always defined them, pushing forward into the unknown, regardless of the warnings? She suspected she already knew the answer, and it both thrilled and terrified her. Ambassador Lehigh-1 stood before the emergency session of the United Earth Assembly, her face pale but determined. 3 days had passed since her return from the Galactic Council Station, and the weight of the alien ultimatum pressed down on everyone in the room. They were afraid, she reported to the assembled leaders. Not concerned, not worried, genuinely afraid? I've never seen anything like it in my 5 years as ambassador. President Choi Min-ho leaned forward in his chair. Tell us again what Elder Voxstar said about the disappearances. Lee consulted her notes, though she hardly needed them. The words were burned into her memory. He called it the Great Silence. According to the Galactic Council records, 17 different civilizations have vanished completely after beginning temporal research. Not destroyed in wars, not killed by disasters, simply gone as if they never existed. Dr. Maria Santos, the Director of Global Sciences, raised her hand. Did they provide any details about how these civilizations disappeared? No, Lee replied. Every time I asked for specifics, they changed the subject or said the information was classified for galactic security. But their fear was real. General Park Dong-min spoke up from the military section. Fear can be used as a weapon, Ambassador. These alien species might simply want to keep advanced technology for themselves. That's what I thought initially, Lee admitted. But there were 47 different species in that room, representing hundreds of worlds. They all agreed instantly about the prohibition. No debate, no discussion. It was like they had been waiting for this moment. President Choi stood and walked to the large window overlooking Seoul. The city sprawled below them, millions of humans, going about their daily lives, unaware that their species had just been given an ultimatum that could change their future forever. What exactly are our options? He asked. Dr. Santos cleared her throat. We could comply with their demands, destroy all our temporal research and submit to galactic oversight, which would mean giving up one of the most significant discoveries in human history, General Park added with obvious distaste. Or, Lee continued, we could refuse and face the consequences. Which are, President Choi asked. Immediate quarantine to our solar system. No trade, no communication, no access to galactic technology or knowledge. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years, but in that time they had gained access to technologies that had advanced their civilization by centuries. Medical breakthroughs, energy systems, faster-than-light communication, all of it would be lost. Dr. Yoon Tae-ho, who had been invited to attend via video link from Seoul, spoke up. With respect to the assembly, I believe we're missing something important here. All eyes turned to his image on the large screen. President Choi nodded for him to continue. These temporal rifts aren't going anywhere, Tae-ho explained. They're natural phenomena that exist in our solar system. Even if we stop studying them now, they'll still be there. Eventually, someone else will discover them. What's your point, Doctor? General Park asked. My point is that this technology, if it can be called that, exists in our backyard. The other alien species are thousands of light years away from it. If temporal manipulation is as powerful as they seem to think, then we have access to something. They don't. A murmur of understanding rippled through the assembly. Dr. Santos leaned forward. You're suggesting that their prohibition isn't about protecting the galaxy from danger. I'm suggesting it might be about protecting their own power, Tae-ho replied. Think about it. If time travel became common, what would happen to civilizations that have held power for millions of years? Ambassador Lee felt a chill as the implications hit her. They wouldn't be the oldest anymore. They wouldn't be the most advanced. A species could theoretically travel back and gain knowledge or resources that would level the playing field. Exactly, Tae-ho said. And humans have a reputation in the galactic community for being ... unpredictable. President Choi returned to his seat, his expression thoughtful. Are you saying we should refuse their ultimatum? I'm saying we should consider why they're so afraid of us having this technology specifically. Humans have broken galactic conventions. Before, we found new solutions to old problems, developed technologies in ways other species never considered. Maybe that's exactly what they're worried about. General Park nodded slowly. Our military analysts have been saying for years that the galactic community's technology has stagnated. They rely on methods that are millions of years old. Because they work, Dr. Santos pointed out. But they also limit growth, Tae-ho replied. What if there are better ways to approach temporal mechanics? Ways that the alien species never considered because they're too set in their traditional thinking? Ambassador Lee thought back to her meeting with the Galactic Council. There was something else. When I asked Elder Voxstar about the disappeared civilizations, he mentioned that they all followed the same pattern. They studied time, then tried to manipulate it, then vanished. All following the same pattern, President Choi repeated, which suggests they all approach the problem the same way. But humans don't approach problems the same way as everyone else, General Park observed. We never have. Dr. Santos pulled up a holographic display showing human technological development over the past century. Look at our advancement curve. Every major breakthrough came from thinking differently than established science said we should. Quantum, Computing, fusion power, faster-than-light communication, we solve them all by ignoring conventional wisdom. So, you're proposing we ignore the wisdom of species that have existed for millions of years? Ambassador Lee asked. I'm proposing we be human, Tejo replied simply. We've never accepted that something was impossible just because others said it was. President Choi called for a brief recess. For the next hour, heated discussions took place in small groups throughout the assembly hall. Military leaders debated the risks of galactic isolation. Scientists argued about the potential benefits of temporal research. Diplomats worried about humanity's future relationships with alien species. When the session resumed, President Choi had made his decision. The Galactic Council has given us 30 days to comply with their demands, he announced. I propose we use those 30 days to learn everything we can about these temporal rifts. A wave of shocked murmurs filled the room. If we're going to face isolation anyway, he continued, let's make sure we understand exactly what we're being isolated for. Dr. Yoon, I'm authorizing expanded research into temporal phenomena, but I want it done quietly and safely. And if the Galactic Council discovers our continued research before the 30 days are up? Ambassador Lee asked. President Choi's expression hardened. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But I refuse to abandon the greatest discovery in human history because alien species are afraid of what we might accomplish. Dr. Yoon nodded. From the screen, I'll need more resources, more researchers, and access to the rifts themselves. You'll have whatever you need, General Park assured him. But this stays classified at the highest level. Only essential personnel. As the assembly session ended, Ambassador Lee remained in her seat staring out at the city below. In 30 days, humanity would either submit to galactic authority or face isolation among the stars. But she suspected that her species had already made their choice the moment they were told something was impossible. It was the most human response imaginable. When told not to do something, immediately start planning how to do it better than anyone else ever had. The question wasn't whether humanity would continue their temporal research. The question was what they would discover, and whether it would be worth the price they were about to pay. Dr. Yoon Tae-ho stood in the newly constructed laboratory buried 3 kilometers beneath the Antarctic ice. The facility had been built in just 22 days, a miracle of human engineering and determination. Above them, the world continued. As normal, unaware that the future of their species was being decided in the frozen depths below. The isolation chamber is ready, announced Park Soo-jin, her breath visible in the cold air despite the heating systems. All temporal monitoring equipment is online. Kim Do-woo looked up from his calculations, excitement and worry mixing in his expression. The mathematical models are complete. Theoretically, this should work. But theoretically and actually are very different things. Tae-ho nodded, understanding his friend's concerns. What they were attempting had never been tried before by any species in the known galaxy. While other civilizations had apparently tried to build machines to travel through time, humans were taking a completely different approach. Remind me again why we think this will work when every other species failed, said Captain Jang So-ra, the military liaison assigned to the project. Tae-ho pulled up a holographic display showing the temporal rifts around Jupiter. Because we're not trying to build a time machine. We're not trying to force our way through time using technology. Instead, Soo-jin continued, we're trying to become part of the temporal field itself. The concept had come to Tae-ho during a sleepless night 2 weeks ago. Every disappeared civilization had apparently tried the same approach, using machines to manipulate time, but humans had always been different. They didn't just use tools. They adapted themselves to become living tools. It's like the difference between building a submarine and growing gills, Du-woo explained. Other species tried to create vehicles to travel through time. We're trying to evolve ourselves to survive in temporal space. Captain Jang frowned. And you think this is safer? I think it's more human, Tae-ho replied. We've always adapted to our environment rather than just changing the environment to suit us. Genetic modifications, cybernetic implants, neural interfaces, We make ourselves better rather than just making better tools. The project had been approved by President Choi just 5 days ago after Dr. Yoon presented his radical proposal. Instead of trying to send machines through the temporal rifts, they would attempt to merge human consciousness with the temporal energy field itself. The rifts aren't just holes in space-time, Taeho had explained to the Emergency Council. They're alive in a sense. They have their own energy patterns, their own rhythms. Instead of fighting against that energy, we join with it. The theory was based on decades of research into human consciousness and quantum mechanics. If consciousness was indeed a quantum phenomenon, as many scientists believed, then it might be possible to synchronize human brain waves with temporal fluctuations. Commander Nam Jinwoo is ready, announced Dr. Shinbyo Ra, the neuroscientist who had volunteered to join the project despite the risks. Jinwoo had volunteered to be the first test subject 3 days ago. He was a veteran space pilot with extensive experience in dangerous missions, but even he seemed nervous as he approached the isolation chamber. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Jang asked him quietly. Jinwoo managed a smile. "Someone has to be first. Might as well be me." The chamber looked like a combination of a medical scanner and a spacesuit. Jinwoo would be suspended in a field of quantum processors that would monitor every aspect of his brain activity while exposing him to carefully controlled temporal energy. "The process will happen in stages," Dr. Shin explained as Jinwoo prepared. "First, we'll synchronize your brain waves with the temporal field. Then we'll gradually increase the exposure until your consciousness begins to resonate with temporal fluctuations." "And if something goes wrong?" Jinwoo asked. Tae-Ho met his eyes honestly. "We don't know. This has never been attempted before. You might experience disorientation, memory issues, or temporal displacement syndrome. Temporal displacement syndrome? Your consciousness might become unstuck in time," Duwoo explained. "You could experience multiple timelines simultaneously or perceive past and future events as if they were happening now." Jinwoo considered this for a moment, then nodded. "Better than letting the galaxy tell us what we can and cannot discover." As Jinwoo entered the chamber, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Captain Jang immediately activated her communication device. "Sir, we have a problem," came the voice of General Park from the surface. "Galactic Council ships have entered the solar system, 3 of them heading directly for Earth." The team exchanged worried glances. They still had 6 days left before the ultimatum expired. "They know," Sujin said quietly. "How could they know?" Duwoo demanded. "We've maintained complete secrecy," Taeho's mind raced. "Unless they've been monitoring the temporal rifts themselves. If they have their own detection equipment?" "Sir?" Jinwoo's voice came from inside the chamber. "Permission to proceed." "Anyway, absolutely not," Captain Jang replied immediately. "It's too dangerous to continue with enemy ships approaching." "With respect, Captain," Jinwoo said, "it's too dangerous not to continue. If they're coming to stop us, then this might be our only chance." Taeho stared at the chamber, his mind wrestling with the decision. Everything they had worked for, everything humanity might become, depended on the next few minutes. "Dr. Yoon," came President Choi's voice over the secure communication line. "The ships will reach Earth in approximately 4 hours. They're demanding immediate access to all temporal research facilities." "Do they know about this facility specifically?" Taeho asked. "Unknown. But they're using deep scan technology we've never seen before?" "They might locate us soon." Sujin stepped forward. "Taeho, if we're going to do this, it has to be now." Dr. Shin checked her instruments. "All systems are ready. Jinwoo's vitals are stable. The mathematical probability of success is still within acceptable parameters," Duwoo added. Though his voice betrayed his uncertainty, Taeho closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of all the times in human history when his species had faced impossible choices. They had always chosen to push forward, to explore, to become more than they were. "Jinwoo," he said finally, "are you absolutely certain about this?" "Sir, if this works, we won't need to fear alien ultimatums anymore. If it doesn't work, well, at least we'll have tried." Taeho looked around at his team, Sujin with her brilliant engineering mind, Du-Wu with his mathematical genius, Dr. Shin with her understanding of human consciousness, Captain Jang with her unwavering determination. They were the best humanity had to offer. Initiate the temporal merge sequence, he ordered, the chamber filled with a soft blue light as quantum processors came online. Jinwoo's brain activity appeared on dozens of monitors, showing patterns unlike anything they had ever recorded. Temporal field exposure at 10%, Dr. Shin reported. Brainwave synchronization beginning. Enemy ships entering Earth's atmosphere, Captain Jang announced. Estimated time to facility discovery, 2 hours. Increasing temporal exposure to 25%, Dr. Shin continued. On the monitors, Jinwoo's brain activity began to change. The normal patterns of human consciousness started to stretch and warp, taking on the rhythm of the temporal rifts themselves. My God, Du-Wu whispered, staring at the readings. It's actually working. 50% exposure, Dr. Shin called out. Jinwoo, how do you feel? Jinwoo's voice came from the chamber, but it sounded strange, distant. I can see everything. Past, present, future, they're all happening at once. Taeho felt his heart racing. They were succeeding where 17 other civilizations had failed. But as the blue light in the chamber grew brighter and Jinwoo's readings became more and more unusual, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover exactly why those other civilizations had disappeared above them. Alien ships descended toward Earth, carrying weapons and technology beyond human understanding. Below them, in a chamber filled with temporal energy, Commander Nam Jinwoo was becoming something that had never existed before. A human being merged with time itself. The next few hours would determine whether humanity had found the key to ultimate power or opened the door to their own extinction. Commander Nam Jinwoo opened his eyes, but what he saw made no sense. The laboratory was there, but so was a version of it from yesterday, and another from what might be tomorrow. Multiple timelines overlapped like transparent sheets of glass, each showing different moments in the same space. Jinwoo, can you hear me? Dr. Shin Biora's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I can hear you, he replied, surprised that his voice still worked normally. But I can also hear conversations that happened yesterday and ones that haven't happened yet. In the observation room, Dr. Yoon Tae-ho watched the monitors with fascination and growing concern. Jinwoo's brain activity showed patterns that shouldn't exist in normal human consciousness. His neural pathways were processing information at incredible speeds, but the patterns were unlike anything in medical literature. Temporal exposure at 75%, Dr. Shin announced. All vital signs stable, but brain activity is off the charts. What exactly are you experiencing? Taeho asked through the intercom. Jinwoo was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a strange quality, as if he was speaking from very far away. I can see the alien ships approaching Earth, but I can also see them arriving, and I can see what happens after they land. Time isn't a line anymore. It's like a room I can walk around in. Park Soo-jin leaned closer to her instruments. The temporal field readings are stabilizing. Whatever's happening to him, it's not random. Kim Do-woo was furiously taking notes, trying to record everything they observed. This is beyond our theoretical models. He's not just viewing different times, he's somehow existing in multiple temporal states simultaneously. Jinwoo, Dr. Shin called out, try to focus on the present moment. Can you tell us what you see in this room, right now? I see all of you watching me, Jinwoo replied. But I also see Dr. Yoon making a decision he hasn't made yet, and Sujin solving a problem that won't happen for another hour. The alien ships, they're not just coming to stop us. They're afraid? Afraid of what? Captain Jang Sora demanded. Of what we might become. I can see their timeline too, Captain. They've been the masters of the galaxy for so long because they control information. They control technology. But if humans can exist in multiple timelines at once... Jinwoo's voice trailed off, and the monitors showed his brain activity spiking to dangerous levels. Pull him out, Captain Jang ordered. It's too risky. No, Jinwoo's voice came clearly through the speakers. I'm fine. Better than fine. I can feel the temporal energy flowing through me like blood through my veins. It's not foreign anymore. It's part of me. Double quotes. Dr. Shin checked her instruments again. Biological signs are actually improving. Heart rate steady, brain chemistry balanced. Whatever this process is doing to him, his body is adapting. Increased to 90%, Taeho decided. Sir, that's beyond our safety parameters, Dr. Shin protested. The alien ships will be here in 90 minutes, Taeho replied. We need to know what Jinwoo can do at full capacity. As the temporal exposure increased, the blue light in the chamber intensified. Jinwoo's form seemed to flicker, sometimes appearing solid, sometimes translucent, as if he was phasing in and out of reality. I understand now, Jinwoo said, his voice filled with wonder. The other civilizations, they tried to build machines to control time. But time isn't something you control. It's something you become. What do you mean? Duwoo asked. Time is alive. It has its own consciousness, its own purpose. The machines other species built fought against that consciousness. But we're not fighting it, we're joining with it. On the monitors, new patterns appeared in Jinwoo's brain activity. Sections of his mind that had never been active before were suddenly blazing with energy. He's accessing parts of human consciousness that we didn't know existed, Dr. Shin whispered in amazement. Jinwoo, Taeho said urgently. The alien ships, can you see what they're planning? They're going to land at the major capital cities. They want to make an example of humanity, to show other species what happens when you disobey the Galactic Council. But they don't know about this facility yet. How long do we have? Jinwoo was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried absolute certainty. 47 minutes until they locate us. But Taeho, it won't matter. What do you mean it won't matter? Because I can see what comes next. We're going to succeed beyond our wildest dreams. But first, we need more people to undergo the process. Captain Jang stepped forward. Absolutely not. We don't know the long-term effects. The long-term effects, Jinwoo said softly, are that humanity becomes something the galaxy has never seen before. We become unstuck from linear time. We become beings who can exist in past, present, and future simultaneously. Dr. Shin was studying her readouts with growing excitement. His cellular structure is changing at the quantum level. The temporal energy is rewriting his DNA. Is that dangerous? Sujin asked. It's not dangerous, Jinwoo answered before Dr. Shin could respond. It's evolution. Forced evolution. We're becoming what humans were always meant to become. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Captain Jang grabbed her communication device. Report, she barked. Captain, the alien ships have begun deep scanning the Antarctic continent. They're using some kind of temporal detection equipment. We estimate 30 minutes before they pinpoint this location. Taeho made a decision that would change everything. Bring in the other volunteers. Sir? Dr. Shin asked. Dr. Ko Jae-sung, Pilot Lee Min-ho, Engineer Baek-the Jin, they all volunteered for the secondary phase. If we're going to survive what's coming, we need more than one temporally merged human. The equipment isn't designed for multiple simultaneous procedures, Sujin protested. Then modify it, Taeho ordered. We have 30 minutes. As the team scrambled to prepare additional chambers, Jinwoo's voice cut through the chaos. Taeho, there's something else you need to know. What? The aliens aren't the real enemy. They're just pawns. There's something else controlling the Galactic Council, something that's been manipulating galactic civilization for millions of years. And it's terrified of what we might discover. What kind of something? I can't see it clearly yet. My temporal perception isn't strong enough, but it exists outside normal space-time. It feeds on linear time, on the predictable flow of cause and effect. Species that become temporally merged disrupt its food source. Dr. Shin was working frantically to prepare the additional chambers. If Jinwoo is right, then we're not just defying the Galactic Council. We're challenging something far more powerful. Good, Captain Jang said grimly. Humans have never backed down from a challenge. 20 minutes later, 3 more volunteers entered temporal merge chambers. Dr. Ko Jae-sung, a physicist who had helped develop the theoretical framework. Pilot Lee Min-ho, a test pilot with nerves of steel. Engineer Baek De-jin, Soo-jin's former student who understood quantum mechanics better than most professors. Initiating simultaneous merge procedures, Dr. Shin announced, the laboratory filled with blue light as 4 temporal fields activated at once. The energy readings were off the scale, but somehow the equipment held together. I can feel them, Jin-woo said as the others began their transformation. Their consciousness is joining with mine through the temporal field. We're becoming ... connected. Connected how? Taeho asked. We share the same temporal awareness now. What one of us sees, we all see. What one of us knows, we all know. On the surface, alien ships descended toward the Antarctic facility, their weapons charging. In the depths below, 4 humans were becoming something that had never existed in the galaxy's long history. Temporal merge complete, Dr. Shin announced as the blue light stabilized. All 4 subjects show full integration with the temporal field. How do you feel? Taeho asked the volunteers. Like we've been asleep our whole lives, Lee Min-ho replied. And now we're finally awake. The aliens are here, Baek De-jin added calmly. They're beginning their descent to our location. Are you afraid? Captain Jang asked. Jin-woo's laughter filled the chamber, but it wasn't the laughter of madness. It was the laughter of someone who had seen the future and found it wonderful. Captain, we're about to show the galaxy something it has never seen before. Humans who don't just exist in time, humans who are time itself. Above them, the first alien weapons began to fire. Intelligence Officer Han Da-jin stared at the intercepted alien communication with growing alarm. The encryption had taken her team 6 hours to break, but the message was crystal clear. The Galactic Council knew about humanity's continued temporal research, and they were coming in force. How many ships? General Park Dong-min asked as he studied the tactical display. 47 vessels from 12 different species, the Jin replied, led by Vextari Inquisitor Morthuk aboard the dreadnought Eternal Judgment. They're not here to negotiate. The message had been transmitted from the edge of the solar system to Galactic Council headquarters. Humanity had 15 hours before the full fleet arrived. What about our Antarctic facility? General Park asked. The advanced scout ships reached Dr. Yoon's location 20 minutes ago, the Jin reported. But there's something strange in the communications. She played the audio feed from the alien ships. The voices were filled with confusion and what sounded like fear. The temporal signatures are gone, came the voice of a Kethmori ship commander. The facility exists, but the humans inside, they're not showing up on our sensors. Impossible, replied another voice. Scan again. I've scanned 17 times. The facility is there, but it's empty. No life signs, no temporal energy, nothing. General Park frowned. What does that mean? Before the Jin could answer, her communication device chimed with an incoming message from the Antarctic facility. Doctor. Yoon's voice came through clearly. General, we're still here and we're fine. But the aliens can't seem to detect us anymore. How is that possible? General Park asked. The temporally merged humans, Dr. Yoon explained. Jin-woo and the others, they're somehow existing outside normal spacetime. The alien sensors are designed to detect linear temporal signatures, but our people aren't linear anymore. The Jin felt a chill of understanding. They've become invisible to standard detection methods? Not just invisible, came Jin-woo's voice over the communication line. We can see them, but they can't see us. And we can move in ways they can't predict. Over the next few hours, reports came in from around the globe. Alien ships were systematically attacking human research facilities, but they were finding them mysteriously empty. Scientists and equipment had vanished without a trace. Sir, the Jin's aide Ko Min-seo announced, we're getting reports of impossible evacuations. The Mumbai facility was evacuated in under 3 minutes. 5,000 people. And all their equipment gone. How is that possible? General Park demanded. Dr. Shin's voice came over the communication system from Antarctica. The temporally merged humans are moving through time itself to coordinate rescues. They can be at multiple locations simultaneously. We're not just saving people, added Dr. Ko Jason, we're saving knowledge. Every piece of temporal research, every piece of equipment, we're moving it all to safe locations. The Jinn pulled up a global map showing alien ship positions. They're getting frustrated. The ships are firing on empty facilities, but they're not finding what they came for. The question is, General Park said grimly, what happens when they realize they're hunting something they can't catch? The answer came 6 hours later. Inquisitor Morthok's massive dreadnought entered Earth's atmosphere directly above Washington, D.C. The ship was 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could level a city. People of Earth, Morthok's voice boomed across every communication. Frequency on the planet, you have defied the will of the Galactic Council. You have continued forbidden research despite our warnings. Surrender your temporal researchers immediately or face the consequences. President Choi Min-ho stood in the White House Situation Room surrounded by his advisors. Can we contact our people in Antarctica? We're here, Mr. President, came Jinwoo's voice, though he wasn't physically present in the room. All of us. The Jin spun around, confused. She couldn't see anyone, but Jinwoo's voice was definitely coming from somewhere nearby. We exist partially outside normal space-time now, explained Beak the Jin. We can be anywhere we need to be. What are our options? President Choi asked. We can surrender, General Park said. Turn over our research and hope they're merciful. They won't be, Jinwoo's voice replied with certainty. I can see their timeline. They plan to make an example of humanity. Public executions of scientists, destruction of our space colonies, reduction of Earth to a pre-industrial state, or, President Choi asked. Or we fight, Captain Jang's voice added. She was supposed to be in Antarctica, but like the others, she seemed to be speaking from the air itself. Fight with what? General Park demanded. They have 47 warships. We have a few dozen fighters and some orbital defense platforms. We have something they don't understand, Lee Min-ho's voice answered. We have humans who can move through time. Over the next hour, the impossible began to happen. Human defense forces around the world started reporting equipment appearing out of nowhere. Advanced weapons, shield generators, tactical computers, all materializing as if delivered by invisible hands. The temporally merged humans are pulling technology from multiple timelines, Dr. Yoon explained to the confused military commanders. Equipment that will be invented in the future, weapons that were designed but never built in the past. That's cheating, one of the generals protested. No, Jinwoo's voice replied with what sounded like amusement. That's thinking like a human. Inquisitor Morthok apparently reached the same conclusion. His next transmission was filled with rage. Humans, you are manipulating temporal mechanics in ways that threaten the stability of reality itself. We hereby authorize the use of quantum dissolution weapons. Your species will be erased from this timeline. The Jinn felt her blood run cold. Quantum dissolution weapons were theoretical superweapons that could destroy matter at the subatomic level. If the aliens actually had such technology, they're powering up something big, her sensor operator reported. Energy readings unlike anything we've ever seen. Mr. President, Jinwoo's voice said urgently, you need to evacuate Washington immediately. I'm not abandoning my post, President Choi replied firmly. Sir, you don't understand. They're not just targeting government buildings, they're targeting the entire eastern seaboard. Before anyone could respond, the temporally merged humans acted. President Choi found himself standing in a secure bunker in Colorado, along with his entire staff. The transition happened instantly, without any sensation of movement. How did he began? We moved you through time instead of space, Beak the Jinn's voice explained. Faster and safer than any transportation. On the screens, they watched as Morthok's dreadnought fired its quantum dissolution weapon. A beam of pure destructive energy lanced down from orbit, striking where Washington, D.C. had been, but instead of finding a city full of people, the beam struck empty buildings. Every human in the target zone had been evacuated through temporal manipulation in the seconds before the attack. Impossible, Morthaka's voice transmitted. Scan the entire planet. Find them. They're everywhere and nowhere, reported one of his subordinates. Temporal signatures are appearing and disappearing faster than we can track them. The Jinn realized what was happening. They're using the entire timeline as a battlefield. The aliens are fighting a war in 3 dimensions, but our people are fighting in 4. What happens now? President Choi asked. Now? Jinwoo's voice replied. We show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. We've spent our whole history being told what we can't do. Time to show them what we can do. Around the world, alien ships found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't understand. Human fighters appeared from nowhere, struck with impossible accuracy, then vanished before return fire could reach them. Supply ships were raided by forces that seemed to materialize inside their hulls. Command vessels received tactical information. That hadn't been transmitted yet. This is impossible, Morthak raged over the communication channels. They're violating the basic laws of cause and effect. No, came Jinwoo's voice, somehow transmitted directly to the alien commander's bridge. We're just not limited by them anymore. As the first day of the war ended, the impossible had become routine. Humanity was not only surviving against overwhelming odds, they were winning. The temporally merged humans had given their species abilities that no alien military doctrine could counter, but the Jinn knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had come expecting to face a primitive species armed with basic temporal research. Instead, they had encountered something entirely new, humans who had become time itself. The hunt had begun, but the hunters were about to discover they had become the hunted. Commander Nam Jinwoo existed in 17 different moments simultaneously. His consciousness spread across time like ripples in a pond. In one moment, he stood in the Antarctic laboratory where it all began. In another, he watched alien ships burning in Earth's orbit. In a third, he saw something that made his merged awareness recoil in horror. The others need to see this, he said to himself across multiple timelines, within seconds. The other temporally merged humans joined their consciousness with his, Dr. Ko Je-sung, pilot Lee Min-ho, engineer Baek De-jin, and the dozen others who had undergone the procedure in the past week. Together, they formed a collective awareness that could perceive vast stretches of time and space. What did you find? Baek De-jin asked, her voice echoing through temporal space. The truth about the Great Silence, Jinwoo replied. And it's worse than we thought. He shared his vision with them. Together, they watched events that had unfolded millions of years ago, preserved in the quantum structure of spacetime itself. The Zephyrian civilization, masters of biotechnology, discovering temporal rifts near their homeworld. Their first experiments with time travel. Their rapid advancement as they gained knowledge from multiple timelines, and then the arrival of the Galactic Council fleet. They were destroyed, Lee Min-ho observed, watching the ancient battle unfold. But not because their experiments went wrong. No, Jinwoo confirmed. They were murdered. The vision showed Kethmori ships surrounding the Zephyrian homeworld. The aliens hadn't come to help or warn. They had come to eliminate a threat to their power. The Zephyrians had discovered something in their temporal research, something that threatened the established order of the galaxy. Go deeper, Dr. Ko urged. Show us what they found. Jinwoo's consciousness dove further into the temporal record, accessing memories preserved in the quantum foam of reality. What he found changed everything. The Zephyrians had discovered that the Galactic Council itself was controlled by temporal manipulators, ancient beings who existed outside normal time, feeding on the ordered progression of cause and effect. They had been guiding galactic civilization for millions of years, ensuring that technology advanced slowly and predictably, maintaining a stable timeline that they could control and feed from. The Kethmori aren't the real rulers, Baek De-jin realized. They're servants. Puppets, Lee Min-ho corrected. Look at their neural patterns. The temporal vision revealed the truth. The elder Kethmori had been modified, their minds linked to beings that existed in temporal space. They thought they were making their own decisions, but every choice had been predetermined by their masters. The temporal lords, Jinwu whispered, finally understanding. That's what the Zephyrians called them. Beings that exist in the spaces, between moments feeding on linear time. Dr. KOS awareness sharpened. Show us the other civilizations. The ones that disappeared. One by one, they witnessed the destruction of 17 different species. The pattern was always the same. A civilization would discover temporal anomalies. They would begin to experiment with time travel. And just as they were about to break through, to true temporal mastery, the Galactic Council would arrive with overwhelming force. It's not about protecting the galaxy from temporal accidents, Beak Dudgeon said, her voice filled with rage. It's about protecting a conspiracy that's older than most stars. The temporal lords can't exist in a universe where multiple species have temporal abilities, Jinwu explained. Their power depends on controlling the flow of time. If species become temporally merged like us, they lose that control. Li Minho's awareness suddenly focused on the present. The alien fleet, they're not just trying to stop our research. Anymore, they're preparing for total planetary sterilization. Through their shared consciousness, they could see Inquisitor Morthic receiving new orders from the deepest levels of Galactic Council hierarchy. Orders that came from beings who existed outside normal spacetime. Eliminate all traces of human temporal research, the order specified. Destroy the planet if necessary. The temporal lords have decreed that this species poses an existential threat to galactic stability. In the Antarctic laboratory, Dr. Yun Tae-ho was coordinating the defense of Earth when Jinwu's voice suddenly filled the room. Dr. Yun, we need to talk, all of us? Within moments, the entire leadership of humanity's temporal research project was gathered, some physically present, others connected through quantum communication. Jinwu and the other merged humans manifested their consciousness in the room, appearing as translucent figures that flickered between different temporal states. The Galactic Council isn't our real enemy, Jinwu announced without preamble. They're being controlled by something far worse. He shared the visions with the assembled scientists and military leaders. The room fell silent as they witnessed the true history of the galaxy, millions of years of manipulation, control, and murder hidden behind a facade of peaceful cooperation. The temporal lords, Dr. Yun said slowly. You're saying that beings from outside normal time have been controlling galactic civilization. Not just controlling, Beak the Jin corrected. Farming it. They feed on the ordered progression of time. Linear causality is their food source. General Park Dong-min leaned forward, and temporal manipulation disrupts their food supply. More than disrupts it, Lee Min-ho explained. It threatens their existence. If enough species become temporally merged, linear time becomes meaningless. Cause and effect become flexible. The temporal lords would starve. Ambassador Li Hai-wan, who had been listening in horror, finally spoke. The 17 civilizations that disappeared, they were all close to breakthrough? Not just close, Jinwu replied. They had all discovered the truth about the temporal lords. They were about to expose the conspiracy. So they were eliminated, Captain Jang So-ra concluded. And now it's our turn. Dr. Ko added grimly. Intelligence Officer Han Na-jin pulled up tactical displays showing the alien fleet's positions. They're not even trying to negotiate anymore. This is a straight extermination mission. But we have advantages they don't expect, Jinwu pointed out. We know the truth now. And we're not limited by linear thinking. Dr. Shinbora, who had been studying the medical data from the temporal merging procedures, looked up from her instruments. There's something else. The merger process is accelerating. Each new volunteer integrates faster than the last. Because we're not fighting the temporal field anymore, Beak the Jin realized. We're working with it. The universe wants beings who can exist outside linear time. Why? Dr. Yun asked. Jinwu's expression grew thoughtful as he accessed deeper levels of temporal awareness. Because linear time is a prison. The universe is meant to be explored in all dimensions, including time. The temporal lords have been keeping galactic civilization trapped in a single timeline for millions of years. They've been preventing evolution, Lee Minho added. Not just biological evolution, temporal evolution. President Choi Minho, who had been listening from his secure bunker, finally spoke. What are you saying? That humanity's temporal research is part of some cosmic plan? Not planned, Jinwoo corrected, but natural. Species are supposed to develop temporal abilities. Eventually, the temporal lords have been preventing that development to maintain their power. Captain Jang studied the tactical situation. So how do we fight beings that exist outside time? We become beings that exist outside time, Dr. Ko replied simply. We evolve beyond their ability to control. The alien fleet has 47 ships and weapons that can destroy planets, General Park pointed out. And we have something they've never encountered before, Jinwoo said with growing confidence. Humans who refuse to be limited by impossible odds. As if summoned by his words, reports began coming in from around the world. More volunteers were arriving at hidden facilities, demanding to undergo the temporal merger process. Scientists, soldiers, pilots, engineers, thousands of humans willing to transform themselves into something the galaxy had never seen. The word is spreading, Han the Jin reported. People understand what's at stake. Not just Earth, Beak the Jin said, her awareness expanding to encompass other star systems. I can see other species, the ones that were never told about the prohibition. They're detecting our temporal signatures and beginning their own research. The conspiracy is unraveling, Lee Minho observed with satisfaction. But they'll fight to maintain it, Jinwoo warned. The temporal lords won't give up millions of years of power without a battle. In the depths of space, far beyond the visible galaxy, ancient beings stirred in rage. For the first time in cosmic ages, their carefully maintained timeline was being threatened by creatures they had dismissed as primitive mammals. The great silence had been broken, and the universe would never be the same. Captain Jang So-ra stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Temporal Dawn, watching reality bend around her vessel. The ship itself existed in multiple time streams simultaneously, its hull flickering between past and future configurations. As temporally merged engineers continuously upgraded it with technology that wouldn't be invented for decades. Enemy fleet approaching from 7 different temporal vectors, announced Navigation Officer Park Min-jun, one of the latest volunteers to undergo the temporal merger process. They're trying to attack us from multiple timelines at once. Let them try, Jang replied with grim satisfaction. They're still thinking in linear terms. Around Earth, the impossible had become routine. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking alien vessels from angles that didn't exist in normal space. The temporally merged humans had shared their abilities with key military personnel, creating a fighting force that could wage war across multiple dimensions of time. In the command center buried beneath Seoul, Dr. Yoon Tae-ho coordinated the defense through quantum communication networks that spanned past, present, and future. His tactical displays showed not just current ship positions, but probability clouds of where battles might occur across multiple timelines. Sector 7 needs reinforcement, reported Colonel Kim Dong-ho, whose consciousness now existed partially. Outside normal time, the Vextari are attempting a temporal pincer movement. Send the Quantum Defiance, Yoon ordered. Have them attack from yesterday. To any observer from the old reality, such orders would have sounded insane. But the temporally merged humans had learned to think in ways that transcended normal cause and effect. Why attack an enemy fleet when you could attack the same fleet before it reached full strength? Why defend a position when you could ensure the attack never happened in the first place? Commander Nam Jinwoo materialized in the command center, his form shifting between different temporal states. Inquisitor Morthok is getting desperate. He's requesting permission to use temporal weapons. They have temporal weapons? Yoon asked with concern. Crude ones, replied Dr. Ko Jae-sung, appearing alongside Jinwoo. Time-locked missiles, chronon disruptors, causality bombs. But they're dangerous to use because they destabilize the timeline. Good, said Engineer Beakvedgen, her voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Unstable timelines are our natural habitat. The first alien temporal weapon fired 3 hours later. A massive chronon disruptor that was supposed to lock Earth in a temporal stasis field, freezing the planet in a single moment of time while the alien fleet destroyed it at leisure. Instead, the weapon's energy was absorbed by the thousands of temporally merged humans scattered across the globe. They drank in the temporal energy like plants absorbing sunlight, growing stronger and more capable with each passing moment. The idiots are feeding us, Lee Minho laughed as he phased through. The hull of an alien cruiser appearing directly on their bridge. The shocked aliens tried to shoot him, but their weapons passed harmlessly through his temporally shifted form. Surrender your ship, he told them politely, or I'll shift you all back to last Tuesday and leave you there. Meanwhile, in the depths of space near Jupiter, something far more significant was happening. The natural temporal rifts that had started humanity's journey were growing larger and more active. The energy released by the Time War was feeding back into the rifts, creating a cascade effect that was spreading throughout the solar system. The rifts are expanding, Dr. Shinbei reported from her monitoring station. But it's not random. They're forming patterns. What kind of patterns? Yoon asked. Like a network. As if they're trying to connect to something. Jinwoo's awareness suddenly sharpened as he perceived something vast stirring in the temporal depths. The temporal lords, they're coming. Across the galaxy, ancient beings that had slumbered in the spaces between moments began to wake. For millions of years, they had guided galactic civilization indirectly, working through their puppets in the Galactic Council. But the human temporal evolution was spreading too quickly to contain through conventional means. They're manifesting directly into normal spacetime, Jinwoo warned. 3 massive entities approaching from the galactic core. On the screens, impossible readings appeared. Objects the size of solar systems but existing partially outside normal space. As they approached, reality itself began to warp around them. Stars flickered as their timelines were manipulated. Planets aged centuries and seconds, then reversed back to their original states. All human forces fall back to Earth's orbital. Space, Captain Jang ordered. We're about to face something we've never encountered before. But even as she gave the order, she realized it was unnecessary. The temporally merged humans weren't falling back. They were advancing. Hundreds of them, their consciousness linked across multiple timelines, moving toward the approaching temporal lords like antibodies responding to an infection. This is what we were meant to do, Jinwoo said, his voice filled with sudden understanding. The temporal rifts, our ability to merge with temporal energy, it wasn't an accident. The universe has been preparing humanity for this moment. Dr. Ko materialized beside him, his form now more energy than matter. The temporal lords have been parasites, feeding on linear time for millions of years. But time was never meant to be linear. Time was meant to be explored, Beakvedgen added, her consciousness expanding to encompass vast regions of spacetime. In all directions, all possibilities. The first contact between humanity's temporally merged consciousness and the temporal lords was like lightning striking the ocean. Reality convulsed as 2 fundamentally different approaches to existence collided. The temporal lords tried to impose linear causality, forcing the humans back into sequential time. The humans responded by embracing chaos existing in multiple, contradictory states simultaneously. They're trying to cage us, Lee Minho reported as he battled entities that existed as pure temporal force. Lock us into single timeline segments. Don't let them, Jinwoo replied, his own consciousness spread across 17 different probability branches. Remember, we're not bound by their rules anymore. The battle raged across multiple dimensions of time and space. In some timelines, Earth was destroyed and humanity was extinct. In others, the temporal lords succeeded in reimposing linear time across the galaxy. But in an increasing number of probability threads, something unprecedented was happening. Humanity was winning. How is this possible? Inquisitor Morthic demanded from his flagship, watching his allies lose battles to forces that shouldn't exist. The temporal lords are eternal. They've controlled galactic time since before our species evolved. Because, came Jinwu's voice, somehow transmitted directly into Morthic's mind, they were never actually controlling time. They were just convincing everyone else not to explore its possibilities. As the war intensified, other species throughout the galaxy began to notice the temporal disturbances. The careful lies that had hidden the temporal lord's existence for millions of years started to unravel. Ancient civilizations that had been forced to abandon temporal research began to remember what they had discovered. Younger species started to question why certain areas of science were forbidden. The conspiracy is collapsing, Dr. Yoon observed from his command center. Reports are coming in from 43 different star systems. Species are beginning their own temporal research. The temporal lords can't fight everyone at once, Han the Jin added. Their power depended on secrecy and control. Once that's broken, they become just another set of aliens with fancy technology. Captain Zhang finished, but the temporal lords had one final gambit. Unable to defeat humanity through conventional temporal manipulation, they began to collapse the timeline itself. If they couldn't control time, they would destroy it, reducing the universe to a single eternal moment that they could feed on forever. Reality is destabilizing, Dr. Shin reported with alarm. Past and future are beginning to collapse into an eternal present. Not if we can help it, Jinwu replied. All merged humans link consciousness. It's time to show the galaxy what we're really capable of. Across space and time, every human who had undergone temporal merger joined their awareness into a single, vast consciousness. They became something new, not just individual humans who could manipulate time, but a collective entity that existed as time itself. The final battle was about to begin, and it would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the nature of time itself throughout the universe. Dr. Yoon Tae-ho stood at the edge of reality itself. His consciousness expanded beyond anything he had thought possible. Around him, the fabric of space-time rippled like water as the final confrontation between humanity and the temporal lords reached its climax. I can see everything, he whispered, his awareness stretching across millions of years and countless galaxies. Every moment that has ever been, every possibility that could exist. The temporal merger process had changed him fundamentally. Longer just a human who could manipulate time, he had become a being of pure temporal energy while somehow remaining essentially human. And he was not alone. Across the galaxy, thousands of humans had joined him in this ultimate evolution. Their linked consciousness formed a network that spanned multiple dimensions of time and space. Together they faced the three temporal lords, who had controlled galactic civilization for epochs beyond counting. You have doomed yourselves, spoke the first temporal lord, its voice echoing across every timeline simultaneously. Without linear time, reality will collapse into chaos. Cause and effect will become meaningless. Maybe, Yoon replied, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's collective determination. But that's better than a universe where growth and exploration are forbidden. The temporal lords existed as massive entities of pure temporal force, each one the size of a star system but concentrated into dimensions beyond normal space. They had fed on the ordered progression of time for so long that they had forgotten what the universe was like before their influence. You understand nothing, the second temporal lord declared. We brought stability to a chaotic cosmos. Before our guidance, civilizations destroyed themselves with temporal paradoxes. We saved the galaxy from itself. Commander Nam Jin-woo, now, existing as both individual consciousness and part of the collective human awareness, laughed. You saved yourselves from competition. Every species that discovered temporal science was eliminated because they threatened your monopoly. As the battle raged in dimensions beyond normal perception, the effects rippled throughout the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, species that had been suppressed for millions of years began to remember their true potential. The careful mental conditioning that had kept them from exploring temporal science started to break down. "Look," said Dr. Ko Jae-sung, his awareness encompassing multiple star systems. "The Andromedans are rebuilding their temporal research stations. The Centauri Collective is experimenting with chrono manipulation. The lies are unraveling everywhere. The Third Temporal Lord's rage sent shockwaves through space-time. We will not allow this chaos. Better to end time itself than to lose control of it." And suddenly Yoon understood the Temporal Lord's final strategy. They were preparing to collapse all timelines into a single, eternal moment, a universe frozen in stasis that they could control absolutely. "They're going to create a temporal singularity," he warned the other humans. "Every moment in the history of the universe compressed into one instant." "Can they do that?" asked Engineer Beak the Jin. "They're trying right now," replied Pilot Lee Min-ho, his awareness focused on the deep structures of space-time. "I can see the collapse beginning at the galactic edge." Reality began to contract. Stars that had burned for billions of years flickered, as their entire histories were compressed into single points of light. Civilizations that had risen and fallen across cosmic ages found their timelines crushed together until past, present, and future became meaningless concepts. "It's working," the First Temporal Lord declared with satisfaction. "Soon there will be only the eternal now, and we will be its masters." But the Temporal Lords had made a critical miscalculation. They assumed that collapsing time would give them ultimate control. Instead, it created the perfect environment for beings who existed outside linear causality. "Now," Yoon commanded, and every temporally merged human acted as one. Instead of fighting against the temporal collapse, they embraced it. They spread their consciousness throughout the contracting timeline, becoming part of the collapse itself. As reality compressed toward a single moment, humanity's awareness expanded to fill every second that had ever existed. "What are you doing?" the Second Temporal Lord demanded as its carefully controlled collapse began to spiral out of its influence. "What humans have always done," Yoon replied, his voice now coming from every moment in the universe's history. "We're adapting to impossible circumstances and finding a way to thrive." The temporal singularity that was meant to imprison the universe instead became humanity's greatest tool. From within the collapsed timeline, they could see every moment of galactic history simultaneously. They witnessed the Temporal Lord's first arrival, their gradual corruption of the Galactic Council, the destruction of 17 civilizations, and countless other crimes hidden across cosmic time, but more importantly, they could act on that knowledge. Time isn't meant to be controlled, Dr. Shin Bio-ra observed as her consciousness touched the fundamental structures of reality. It's meant to be lived, explored, experienced. Working together, the temporally merged humans began to reshape the collapsed timeline. Instead of a single eternal moment controlled by the temporal lords, they created a complex web of interconnected possibilities. Time became fluid, allowing movement in all directions while maintaining the stability needed for civilizations to exist and grow. "Impossible," the Third Temporal Lord raged. "Time must be linear, order must be maintained." "Order, yes," Yoon agreed. "But not control, there's a difference." The new temporal structure they created was elegant in its complexity. Linear time still existed for species that needed it, but temporal travel and exploration were possible for those ready to embrace the greater possibilities. The universe became not a single timeline, but a vast network of interconnected moments that could be navigated by sufficiently advanced consciousness, the temporal lords. Beings that had existed only by controlling linear time found themselves powerless in this new reality. Without the ability to impose their will on the universe's timeline, they began to fade, their ancient power dissipating into the temporal matrix. "You have destroyed the natural order," the First Temporal Lord accused as its form began to dissolve. "We've restored it," Jinwoo replied. "Before you arrived, the universe was meant to be explored in all dimensions. We're just returning it to its original state." As the temporal lords faded into cosmic history, the effects of the transformation rippled throughout the galaxy. Species that had been suppressed for millions of years suddenly found themselves free to explore temporal science. Technologies that had been forbidden were rediscovered and improved upon. The careful stagnation that had kept galactic civilization trapped for epochs came to an end on Earth. Ambassador Lehigh 1 stood before a very different galactic council. The station orbiting Alpha Centauri now hosted representatives from hundreds of species, many of whom were experimenting with their own forms of temporal research. The temporal accords are now in effect, she announced to the assembled delegates. No species will be forbidden from exploring any field of science. No civilization will be eliminated for pursuing knowledge. And most importantly, no entity will ever again be allowed to secretly control galactic development. The former Kethmori leadership, freed from the mental conditioning that had made them puppets of the temporal lords, offered formal apologies to the species they had helped suppress. Elder Voxstar, his ancient mind now clear for the first time in millennia, spoke with tears in his 6 eyes. "We remember now," he said quietly. "We remember what we were before they came. We were explorers, scientists, dreamers. They made us into instruments of oppression." Inquisitor Morthok, whose fierce loyalty to the old order had been based on manufactured beliefs, stood before the assembly and formally dissolved the Vextari military caste. "We have been warriors fighting for lies," he declared, "no more." But the most significant change was happening throughout human space. The temporal merger process had evolved beyond anything Dr. Yoon had originally envisioned. Humans weren't just becoming temporal beings, they were becoming guardians of temporal stability. "We can sense disturbances across multiple timelines," reported Dr. Ko Jae-sung from his new position as Director of Temporal Sciences. "Paradoxes that need resolution, collapsed probability threads that need repair." The temporally merged humans had discovered their true purpose. They weren't just beings who could travel through time, they were the universe's immune system against temporal chaos. When civilizations experimented dangerously with time travel, humans were there to help them find safer methods. When natural temporal anomalies threatened to destabilize reality, human consciousness could repair the damage. "It's like we were always meant for this," Jin Woo observed during one of the collective consciousness meetings that had replaced traditional government sessions. "Every aspect of human nature, our adaptability, our refusal to accept limitations, our ability to work together despite our differences, it all prepared us to be temporal guardians." President Choi Min-ho, now one of the temporally merged himself, smiled as he watched reports from across the galaxy. "And the best part is, we're not doing it alone anymore." Other species were developing their own approaches to temporal science. The Andromedans had learned to navigate